जय जगद्गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। गौरांग करुणा करो दीनहीन जाने, गौरांग करुणा करो दीनहीन जाने, मोसाम पतित प्रभु नाही त्रिभुवने, मोसाम पतित प्रभु नाही त्रिभुवने, दंते तृणाधरी गौरा डाकी है तुम्हारा, दंते तृणाधरी गौरा कृपा करिए स्वामा हृदय मंदिर, कृपा करिए स्वामा हृदय मंदिर, जदि दया न करिबे पतित देखिया, जदि दया न करिबे पतित पतित पावन नाम किसर लगिया, पतित पावन नाम देखी भवतु पारे नायिका निस्तार, देखी भवतु पारे श्री चरण तरणी दाने दास करो पार, श्री चरण तरणी दाने तुम्हारा, श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु दास दास, श्री कृष्ण प्रभु दास प्रार्थना करे सदा नरोत्तम दास, प्रार्थना करे सदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे हरे, गौरांग Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Chaitanya Prabhu Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Tukaram Prabhu, can you hear me okay? Okay, your mic is really low, or maybe my volume. Just 1 second. So we're very fortunate tonight. We have a very, very special guest who's also someone who's my spiritual uncle, but someone I consider a very dear friend at the same time. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj, thank you very much for taking part tonight. I don't know if the devotees realize how fortunate we are to have Maharaj with us. He's a very, very busy person. He's engaged all over the world, literally, both as a devotee and as an academic. He's a sannyasi. I had the good fortune to be there when he took sannyas in Germany some years ago from Sachinanda Maharaj. But he's also known as Kenneth R. Valpe. And I'm just looking at something from the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies and also Maharaj's personal website. And he has a PhD. He completed his PhD from the University of Oxford in 2003. He's written a number of books. He's taught in the University of Florida in Gainesville, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and Croatia. He's written a number of books. I know one of his passions is cow care and Hindu animal ethics. I've heard him speak about that several times. He did his thesis in about deity worship. He wrote a book called Krishna Seva. He's also written a couple of books about the Bhagavatam. And he's an academic, and he's also a very wonderful devotee. What stimulates me more than his academic side is his artistic side. He likes art very much. He likes ragas. He likes Krishna Katha, I mean, real Krishna Katha with different leelas and things. And he encourages devotees to think and to write poetry. He likes drama very much. We're just very, very fortunate. Thank you so much, Maharaj. I really, really appreciate you coming. I'd also like to introduce something of the organizers, Tukaram Prabhu and Amritesh Gaur. Let me just pin them up here. They're both disciples of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj did a wonderful thing some years ago by asking them to come to Bhubaneswar to do some preaching. And before that, there was a little bit of preaching going on, there was some IYF program, ISKCON Youth Forum. And I don't know, I gave a class there once, 20 years ago, and it was like maybe 10, 15 people or something. Now there's something like 300 boys and 200 girls. They have 10 different youth hostels that they're renting out, and they have a very dynamic group. It's really, really wonderful. And these are all boys who are going to college and who are interested in Krishna consciousness, both they're practicing. And I just thought you were the very best person in the world to speak something to them, Maharaj. Maharaj also knows Sanskrit, at least well enough to read and do some light translation, as well as Bengali and Hindi something. I don't think much of India. But he's also blessed as sometimes he stays here with us in our house. And he's attended a number of our retreats with Damodar Maharaj here in Puri. And I'm very much looking forward to hoping to see you here again sometime soon, Maharaj. And you're in Poland still right now. Is it right, Maharaj?
I am. I'm still in Poland since more than a year now.
Being locked down.
Yeah.
So, Tukaram Prabhu or Amritesh, any comments that you have? By the way, at the end, Maharaj, there would probably be some comments and questions from the devotees, and usually Amritesh Gaur Prabhu takes care of that. And that would be really nice. I would like to, if Amritesh allows me to make some comments of my own, I would appreciate that at the end as well. So, Maharaj has a very special topic for everybody tonight. It's Krishna consciousness and the pizza effect. Hare Krishna. Tukaram Prabhu, Amritesh, any comments from you?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Madhvana Prabhu, surely. Hare Krishna Maharaj. We offer our humble obeisances to you at the lotus feet. It was a pleasure just before the lockdown. We had the good fortune to have you in Bhubaneswar. For some time you have come. And then we also had attended some of your classes in ILS. We are very blessed that today we have got your association, and let us all cherish it.
Amritesh Prabhu, for some reason there's an echo when you're speaking. I don't know why.
Oh. Okay, so quickly we'll just hand over to Maharaj and we seek for his blessings. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Madhavananda Prabhu, my thanks to you for inviting me to join in this event, and my thanks to all of you of Bhubaneswar Yatra or Greater Bhubaneswar Yatra. It's my good fortune, and I must say that I think we've all discovered in the last year or so one of the advantages of lockdowns and whatever, combined with the technology, internet technology, that we can connect in this way that we might otherwise not have. So I'm appreciating this opportunity. I want to ask, what is our schedule? Please give me an indication when I should stop speaking, and then we can go for discussion. What's our general time scale?
Maharaj, we can hear you for more than 1 hour. And if some questions are there, then we
I'm sorry, I missed when you said the critical point.
You're echoing.
I'm saying that for till 7:15 or 7:30 we can hear, and then we can take questions.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that means about an hour roughly, Maharaj.
Okay.
It's not 7:15 where he's at on Ritesh.
Yeah. Okay, good. So let's begin with some pranati, and then we can go into explaining something about, yes, what I'm calling Krishna consciousness and the pizza effect. You might be in a little bit of suspense. What do I mean by the pizza effect? And I hope to explain that fully. And I hope that you'll appreciate why this is a significant idea and how it may, in fact, be impacting your lives, whether or not you call it the pizza effect or not. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitangscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So what I want to do in this talk is I want to give a kind of overview of some of the history which many, if not most of you, are somewhat familiar with, namely about Srila Prabhupada bringing Krishna consciousness to the West. I might ask, and maybe you can hold up electronic hands to tell me how many of you that I see here on screen have read either the abridged or the unabridged edition of the biography of Srila Prabhupada. So far, I see Tukaram, Prabhu, and yes, okay. Well, maybe not as many of you as I expected, which suggests that what I have to tell may be indeed some new information for many of you. And to do this, I'm going to take help from a slideshow, PowerPoint, if I can share my screen. Do I have facility to do that? It looks like yes. Okay. And we can go to full screen there. Can you all see the screen, the image? Yes, okay, good. So I want to, maybe first I should explain already now what is meant by pizza effect. This is an expression that was coined by a man named Agehananda Saraswati. He was from Austria, from Central Europe. He became a sannyasi. He went to India. He came back. He became a professor in the university. And he wanted to explain something that he saw in his time back in the mid 20th century. And the reason what he's talking about is called the pizza effect is because of the history of pizza. My guess is that you are all familiar with pizza and that you all like pizza when it has been offered to Krishna, of course. So the pizza effect is having to do with the fact that pizza originated in Italy, and then together with Italian migrants to the United States, pizza migrated to the United States. And in the United States, it migrated eventually to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, some creative cooks, especially in San Francisco, maybe elsewhere as well, they developed the pizza into something which was much richer than the original pizza. The original pizza of Italy was basically a simple bread with a kind of tomato sauce. And that was about it. Well, in America, it became something much more than that. And I won't go into details, especially some forms of pizza are non-vegetarian, but let's imagine a vegetarian pizza. And so many different ingredients were added to it to make it very rich. And eventually someone brought this pizza back to Italy. And in Italy, it became popular to the point where the Italian government decided one day we need to make an official recipe of pizza so that the original tradition doesn't get lost. So you may see where I'm going with this. I want to say that Krishna consciousness was brought to the West, in particular by Srila Prabhupada, following the order of his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Whoa, it's growing pizza. And that after spreading Krishna consciousness in the West, or as he was spreading in the West, Srila Prabhupada came back to India. And in India, he established a movement which is, to the present day, perhaps more than anywhere else in the world, expanding in amazing ways. So let's go back to the year 1922. I don't believe any of us were present at that time. 1922 is the year that Srila Prabhupada met his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, in North Kolkata, on the roof of a building which is now owned by ISKCON and is under renovation at number 1 Ultadunga Road. And significantly, when our Srila Prabhupada, at that time, Abhay Charan De, when he met his guru, at that time, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, was an avid follower of Mahatma Gandhi. So avid that he made it very public that he was a follower of Gandhi. And in those days, the way you made it public that you were a Gandhian was that you wore handloom cloth. So that's rather than the manufactured cloth that was had become so popular, he would wear the hand-loomed dhoti, kurta. And more than that, more radical than that, is that after he completed his studies as an undergraduate at Scottish Churches College, he had completed his degree. He refused to accept the diploma. This was in protest against the British presence in India. That's a very strong protest to make. If you, I think many or most of you listening now are students, just imagine that you spend whatever period of time it is studying 3 years or 4 years before you qualify for your degree, and then you decide, I don't need it, I'm not going to accept it. That kind of conviction Srila Prabhupada had in the movement of Gandhi until he met Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. And when he met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he challenged him. He said, who is going to listen to you until we, the Indian people, gain independence? He was thinking Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's message of Krishna Bhakti following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a wonderful message, but who's going to care about it? Who's going to listen as long as we are a colonized country? And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur replied very strongly, saying it has nothing to do This message has nothing to do with the particular political conditions in which we find ourselves. It is a transcendental movement. It is meant for all people in all times, in all circumstances. And you, he told Srila Prabhupada at that time, because you can speak English, you should spread this movement in the English language. Now, all of this took place within just a few minutes, and it changed the course of Srila Prabhupada's life. That request from Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur for him to spread the Krishna consciousness movement in English went deep into Srila Prabhupada's heart. And so it was that not until 1965, September of 1965, after Srila Prabhupada had been preparing himself for the previous 40-some years that he embarked on the Jaladuta to Boston and then New York. Now, here's one thing I'd like you to imagine. Consider Srila Prabhupada's age at that time. By this time, this was, he had been born, he had appeared in this world in 1896. So he was 69 years old. I would imagine that some of you have grandparents around that same age presently. And what I'd like you to imagine is that one day your grandfather comes to you and says, I'm going to take a ship, a merchant ship, over to New York, and I'm going to spread the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You might look at your grandfather and say, my dear grandfather, what has gotten into you? Where did you get this idea? How are you going to do this? What are the facilities that you have? Do you have any money for this? And if your grandfather said, yes, I have 40 rupees, or maybe in today's calculation, he might say, I have 400 rupees or a little more. You would say, Granddad, that's, let's get real, we say in America. Get real, this is not going to happen. So this is a situation that Srila Prabhupada was in, but Srila Prabhupada had something which he took with him as he went. He had the instructions of his guru, he had his absolute conviction, faith in the words of his guru, and he had his own translation of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in English, published in 3 volumes. You see this in the photo of Prabhupada on the left. And so in this situation, he arrived eventually in New York. He went from there to stay with his host in a town in what's in the state of Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania, and he began his mission in this way. Nobody believed that he would make any progress with the mission. He himself sometimes would consider going back to India. He would walk the streets of New York alone, and he would simply wonder, where and how am I going to spread the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu amongst these people who are so overwhelmed with the modes of passion and ignorance. Eventually, a few young people in New York, in an area called the Lower East Side of Manhattan, start to listen to what Srila Prabhupada has to say. At that time, Prabhupada is known as Swamiji. It'll be some time before devotees get the idea that maybe they should offer him or address him in a more respectful way than simply Swamiji. But he is able to gather a small following, and they're able to rent a very small space on 2nd Avenue, which is a quite busy street toward the end of the street, number 26, next to a petrol station. That petrol station is now gone, and in its place is a large building, maybe a 10-story building, which comes up directly against the wall of Matchless Gifts, the place that Srila Prabhupada had. Matchless Gifts is still functioning as what we call a preaching center. It's being rented by the devotees of the New York Yatra today. So this was the essence of Srila Prabhupada's mission: get people to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. When he suggested to the few followers that now let us go out into the park and chant Hare Krishna, at first they thought, oh, what is this? Go into public and chant? Oh, they were very hesitant. But then the Swami was enthusiastic, so all right, why not? Let's go. And so here they are. You see Srila Prabhupada. This is Tompkins Square Park. This is again in Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York City. And I like to say this is where it all began. For many devotees, this is a place of pilgrimage. This particular tree has a small sign on it now, the Hare Krishna tree. So it's become a landmark as the beginning in the West of a movement which, if we suddenly flash back to 530 years to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going through the streets of Navadvip and then going through South India, and so many people joining him in chanting Hare Krishna, who could imagine that this would be taken up in the streets of New York and so many other streets now around the world? The utter and complete faith of Srila Prabhupada in the words of his guru were what was touching, what was reaching to the people whom he met. They understood He is not simply putting on a show. This is for real. This is real spirituality. Now, if we had more time, I would show you some more things about American culture at the time that Srila Prabhupada was there. There was a lot going on. One of the things that was going on, and it was a major, major concern for all Americans at the time, was the Vietnam War. America had, the US had become involved, had become deeply involved in this war, and there was increasing resistance by the young people of America to participation in the war. That was one thing, but also there were many, not many, but there was a good number of, let's say, swamis and yogis coming from India who were promoting their particular style of yoga, of meditation, and so on. And some of them were prominent, but what it was they were offering was invariably disappointing for those who were serious seekers. Prabhupada is playing a little what's called a bongo drum. And there was no mridanga available yet. And this is, this part of New York was a place where many, what came to be called hippies, were assembling. A lot of artists, poets, writers, also many immigrants from East Europe were coming to this part of New York. So as his followers were becoming gradually more serious, Srila Prabhupada would show them what it means to live in the practice of bhakti yoga, devotion to Lord Krishna. He would do everything himself, including cooking. And eventually the devotees would become more and more organized in their presentation of Harinam Sankirtan in the streets. So you see some examples here. And eventually, devotees began to perform Jagannath Ratha Yatra. What you see on the left here is the very first Ratha of Jagannath in San Francisco in 1967. There's a whole story about how these deities of Jagannath came to San Francisco. I won't tell that just now. But this became the beginning of a tradition which continues quite vibrantly throughout the world now. I was just taking part in a Ratha Yatra festival a few days ago in the second largest Polish city, Wrocław. And major cities of the world, most prominently perhaps London and New York. The Ratha Yatra is going on. Sometimes there are complaints from the priests of the Jagannath temple in Puri that we are performing Ratha Yatra on the wrong days of the year, that it is supposed to happen on a particular day, and there are astrological reasons and shastric reasons, and no doubt many other reasons why it should be taking place on a particular day, to which our devotees simply reply that we often do not have a choice of which day. It depends very much on the permission given by the particular city to have Ratha Yatra on one or another day. In Hong Kong, they perform Ratha Yatra on Christmas Eve, for example. We understand that Srila Prabhupada said, I should maybe go back to that. We understand that Lord Jagannath is the Jagat Nata, the Lord of the universe. And by Srila Prabhupada's determination, he has now come in so many places around the world to demonstrate that he is indeed the Lord of the universe. Srila Prabhupada did not shy away from media engagement. He was very comfortable with the media. He also interacted with celebrities. You see on the bottom right, George Harrison of the, at that time, extremely famous rock music group, the Beatles. George Harrison was a very strong supporter of Srila Prabhupada. Allen Ginsberg on the top left was a famous beat poet of America at the time. And Prabhupada appreciated all kinds of media presentation, media exposure. In London, 1973, for example, after Ratha Yatra, devotees brought an article to Prabhupada that said that the Rat cart in the photo that was in the article was rivaling the Nelson column. I don't have a picture of that here, but Prabhupada was so pleased to see this. As devotees more and more imbibed Srila Prabhupada's teachings, he determined that they were now becoming serious enough to take the vows of initiation. And so Srila Prabhupada accepted disciples wherever he went. He accepted disciples not only for the Harinam initiation, but also for the Brahmana Diksha, for taking the Brahman Upavita and chanting of the Gayatri mantras, something which he was criticized for by even his own godbrothers. Oh, here we have some more Ratha Yatra. You see the increasing size of the event over a short time. Srila Prabhupada was not satisfied to stay in America. He traveled to other countries, eventually to London, to Paris. I first met him in Paris in 1972. Gives you some idea of my age. In that same year, Srila Prabhupada went to Moscow, and he went to all continents of the world in the course of some 11 years. I think, what did they say? He traveled the earth some 12 times in the 11 years of his preaching prior to his departure. And his followers, his disciples would organize public events for him, lectures. This is in, I believe, Conway Hall in London. This would be in Geneva or in Paris in the top middle, and in Germany on the left. Srila Prabhupada came to Germany when I was in Germany in 1974. And he installed the deities of Radhakrishna. The picture on the top left is Shri Radha Paris Ishvara. And I was fortunate to be present at this very time. I didn't take this photo, but I was somewhere close to the photographer because I distinctly remember seeing Srila Prabhupada offer arati to their lordships. And of course, Srila Prabhupada was very concerned for the publishing of his books. As you may well know, Prabhupada had a very rigorous daily schedule, getting up shortly after midnight and translating. He was conducting the painting of images for his books. He was answering letters daily. He was corresponding. We have the full collection of his correspondence, several thousand letters. And he was encouraging devotees to accept prasadam and to distribute prasadam as one of the cornerstones of the Krishna consciousness movement. This is Berkeley, California. The University of California at Berkeley is where I first met devotees in 1969. And you see on the right, this is where the devotees would stand and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day, 5 days a week, for approximately 6 hours a day. They would distribute their magazine Back to Godhead, and on weekends they would also come out and they would chant, but just 2 or 3 blocks away from this particular location. But for me, this is a very memorable image of the devotees chanting and chanting and chanting, and gradually getting into my own heart and moving me to also take up the chanting. Well, at one point, Srila Prabhupada went back to India. Which year would this have been? Possibly also 1972 or 71. The picture on the left is in Surat, I believe, and on the right, of course, is in Vrindavan. Now, here we're beginning the full circle of the story that I want to emphasize. What I'm calling, in a sort of joking way, the pizza effect, is actually something which Srila Prabhupada took very seriously. As you may know, Prabhupada made some initial attempts at spreading Krishna consciousness in India before he went to the West. He started a project in Jhansi, south of Vrindavan, and it did not take off. It didn't work. Various circumstances forced him to give up that attempt. And he saw wherever he went in India that people were just not so interested in his message. Rather, they were interested much more in technology. They were interested in things Western. The Indian, now independent Indian government was saying that our factories and our dams are our temples, that sort of thing. So the interest was there, but it was not visible. It was covered over. Now, I need to back up a little bit, though, because I wanted to share something else here. Let's see if I can find this. Yes. When Srila Prabhupada was in Berkeley, the university where I was attending, Prabhupada explained some years later, I'm quoting here, he says, when I was speaking in Berkeley University sometime in the year 1966, actually, I don't think it was 66, I think it may have been 68. One Indian student stood up and he said, Swamiji, what this Krishna consciousness movement will do, we require now technology. So I replied, yes, you are after technology. So you are a beggar. I am not a beggar. I have come here to give something. That is the difference. I have come here to give some culture, and you have come to imitate the Western civilization by technology. That is the difference. You'll remain a beggar. I shall remain a giver. That is the difference. So still, I am maintaining that position of giving, not taking. So these are very strong words of Srila Prabhupada. And I don't mean by this to criticize you. I think many of you students are studying technology in your colleges. Technology is okay, there's no problem. Technology pervades our society. But if we are after technology only, then Srila Prabhupada is saying we are simply beggars. What do we want to be as devotees of Krishna? We want to be givers, following the example of Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada came back to India and he brought with him his young Western followers with their pale Caucasian faces, and he surprised and shocked and amazed everyone whom they met, and he attracted important people. The Prime Minister of India became interested in his work. Others, senior prominent persons, and they came to his events, his Pandal programs, by the thousands. And they came to hear Srila Prabhupada, and they also came to see what Srila Prabhupada called his dancing white elephants, the Western devotees. Because after Prabhupada would speak, then they would sing Hare Krishna and they would dance on stage and everyone would be amazed. Well, this was the 1970s, and here we are now in the year 2021, So we are several decades beyond or after the time of Prabhupada's presence. And we can be sure that Srila Prabhupada is very happy with the impact that his movement has had in India. But now is something I want to explain further, and this brings up again the idea of the pizza effect. And that is, Srila Prabhupada had a very clear strategy, which he articulated from the time before he went to America. As I said, he noticed, or he saw, it was obvious that people in India were not particularly interested in his message, although his message was about the ancient glorious Vaishnava traditions of India and the teachings of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He reasoned that if I can inspire some Westerners to take up this practice of following the teachings of Lord Krishna, practicing bhakti yoga, and bring them to India, then people in India will see, oh, gosh, they are taking our practice seriously. We should also take it seriously. And sure enough, that's what happened. But that's only half of Prabhupada's strategy. The other half is that now the young people, especially of India, taking Krishna consciousness seriously, learning thoroughly the teachings from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, will then, especially the young educated Indians, will then be able to take this message to the rest of the world. And because of their learning and their perfect behavior, following the example of Srila Prabhupada, just as Prabhupada inspired so many young people simply by his behavior, his perfect Vaishnava behavior, he inspired them to follow him. So similarly, so many young people of India like yourselves can take the message, of course, also in your own neighborhoods, wherever you are from, if not Bhubaneswar, also Bhubaneswar, wherever around Odisha or beyond, other parts of India. But there's a whole world, there's a whole planet which is starving for Krishna consciousness. And because it has been, so to say, repackaged, again, the pizza effect idea, because it's been repackaged in modern form without changing the principles, changing the details without changing the principles, and with the creative intelligence of young people of the Indian subcontinent, it may very well be possible that Krishna consciousness be taken up with all the more extent and seriousness in all other parts of the world. That is Srila Prabhupada's full strategy. Prabhupada was not a small thinker. He was thinking, he was convinced that there's only one way for anyone, for everyone, for this whole world to be happy, and that is with Krishna consciousness. if this is the only way for people to be happy, then it follows that the whole world should be given the opportunity to take Krishna consciousness. They will only take this opportunity if they are presented Krishna consciousness in ways which they can relate with, which they can be attracted to. And so this is how Srila Prabhupada was envisioning his movement. So we may say that Srila Prabhupada's purpose, it's more than 50 years since he began his mission. But what is 50 years? It is nothing. It is just the beginning. And therefore, we can all take that spirit, that same spirit that Srila Prabhupada had, study very diligently to be qualified in our own material qualifications, whatever they may be, and at the same time become fully qualified as representatives of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Guru Parampara. So that was my very brief whirlwind tour of Prabhupada's mission. I hope you got something of the idea of what I wanted to say with it. And perhaps now we can open it up to reflections and discussion, and maybe there are questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, we are very thankful to you. Maharaj, would like to know how you came in Krishna consciousness, what inspired you? Hare Krishna. Am I audible, Maharaj?
Yes, I can hear.
Maharaj,
Well,
we would
as
like
I
to know
said,
that how you came in Krishna consciousness.
okay. As I said, I was a student at the University of California in Berkeley from 1969, and I was beginning a course in architecture, and at the same time, I was being exposed to these different, let's say, different variety of representations of Indian culture, Indian religion, and especially yoga. And I became intrigued. And being the sort of person I was, I needed to read. I needed to read something traditional to understand where this was coming from. So in a way, it started with getting a copy of a translation of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It was a translation which had a commentary, and perhaps ironically, the format of this book was to have each of the sutras with the commentary in the same way that Srila Prabhupada's books are done, with the Devanagari, the transliteration, the word for word, the translation, and then the commentary for each sutra. So in the sutras, in the commentaries, it was repeated that this practice of yoga in the present day is practically speaking impossible. We live in the age of Kali, and it is practically impossible. But there is a practice called bhakti yoga. And this bhakti yoga is something which can be done. Now, this book did not go into any further explanation. What is bhakti yoga? It just mentioned bhakti yoga. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, but Where do I find that? Nowadays, you just go on the internet, you type in Bhakti Yoga. There you are. You immediately find something. We didn't have computers. We didn't have internet. We didn't have any of that. If I was a little bit more smart, I would have gone to our university library, which is one of the largest libraries in the world, with something like 8 million books. And I would have found something about Bhakti Yoga, but I wasn't thinking at the time. So it would be another 3 years before I would meet the devotees while traveling in Germany. And they told me, we practice Bhakti Yoga. And when they said that, I immediately thought, I think this is what I'm looking for. And then 2 weeks later, the news came that Srila Prabhupada is coming to Paris. So all of us in Germany went to see Srila Prabhupada. And when I saw Srila Prabhupada, the instant that I saw him when he arrived in the airport, I thought, there he is. That's my teacher. I don't think I knew the word guru yet, but I thought, he's the one I'm looking for. And that was it. The rest is history. I was reading other books as well, along with my, technical studies of architecture. I was doing some fairly wide reading, and I was listening to music. Ravi Shankar, not the yogi, but the musician, the sitar player, came to Berkeley one time, and he was a huge hit. Everyone was suddenly listening to sitar music, classical, Hindustani music. So there were some cultural things there. I had some vague attraction for things Indian, and just no clear ideas until meeting Srila Prabhupada, meeting the devotees, starting to read Ishopanishad and then Bhagavad Gita. And then everything started making sense. And I thought, yeah, this makes sense. And besides, prasadam tastes good. And besides that, I loved the kirtan. The first day I met the devotees in Germany, I asked them, do you have some sort of early morning meditation? And they said, yeah, actually we do. In fact, we start at 4:30 in the morning with our morning prayers and meditation. And they expected me to say, oh, that's crazy, forget it. I could never do that. But I didn't. I said, oh, 4:30 sounds good, sounds serious. Can I join you tomorrow morning? They said, sure. Next morning, I came at 4:30 to ring the bell where they were staying, and nobody answered the door. And I met them later in the day. They said, oh, we're so sorry you actually came. That doorbell doesn't work. Okay, come tomorrow. So I came the next morning and took part in the morning program. And 2 days later, I was wearing a dhoti with a shaved head on the streets in Stuttgart, distributing the German version of Back to Godhead magazine, Zurück zu Gottheit, as they called it at the time, which is a kind of coarse translation of Back to Godhead. Yeah. So that's how it happened. But I want to say also, I feel that I'm still in the process of joining the Hare Krishna movement. That it's not just a matter of shaving the head and putting on different clothes and taking up the beads and even taking initiation. It's so much more than that. It's a lifetime project. It's possibly more than one lifetime. We hope it's just one lifetime. But it's a process, and it's a process in which we're engaging all of our abilities, all of our faculties. Sometimes people who take up Krishna consciousness have a misconception that to practice bhakti yoga, I have to turn off my intelligence or maybe throw it away. I have to pack up and put away and forget about the different sorts of talents that I have, and so on. No, bhakti yoga is not that. It's about engaging everything in Krishna's service. Everything means not just things, but our what Krishna gives us, our qualities, everything that we have been blessed with, we can bring into the range of service where we can find how it can be, Prabhupada used to say, dovetailed in Krishna's service. The word dovetail, that expression comes from traditional furniture making. Did you know this, Madhavananda Prabhu? Yeah, it comes from furniture making. A very, very strong joint is made when putting two pieces of wood together perpendicular to each other, like making a drawer, by a kind of interlocking design. And that interlocking design is called a dovetail. It's very strong. They don't make furniture like that anymore because they make furniture to fall apart within 2 or 3 years. But they used to make it that way. And, you could buy a piece of furniture that would last 100 years. So he would say, dovetail everything in Krishna's service. That means bring into engagement in the service of Krishna, and thereby make your spiritual position in relation to Krishna completely firm and strong. So I think this is important for us. And it's, as I said, in my own case, I feel like I'm still, I say joining the Hare Krishna movement, I'm still learning how to engage myself in Krishna's service.
Thank you so much for your relaxing words. Definitely, it is so enlightening to hear from you how you came and the way you explained how Srila Prabhupada did this pizza in America. Voices.
Thank you. I heard about 30% of what you just said, but I think I got the idea.
Madhavanand Prabhu, you want like to say anything? Comment.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to thank you very much, Maharaj. It was very, very stimulating. I'm so delighted to see how you're making everyone think. That's such a very, very important thing. And there's a number of points that I really, really appreciated. You're speaking about Srila Prabhupada and how Prabhupada struck everyone wherever he went. And I was thinking also about yourself. For the devotees who don't know, Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj has many disciples, some of whom are watching this tonight. And he's very, very much inspiring many, many devotees. You know, I did have a little comment also. You were mentioning about still joining. Our Guru Maharaj, one time in Bhubaneswar, he asked a question, kind of a rhetorical question. He said, "What is ISKCON?" And he answered it himself. He said, "The International Society for Krishna Consciousness." And then he said, "Who's really a member?" Someone who's really Krishna conscious. And then in front of everybody, he pointed at me and he said, "Madhavananda, not yet joined." So when devotees ask us, "When did you join ISKCON?" I say, well, I was appreciating you saying that. I'd like to. I'm hoping someday. So thank you so much, Maharaj. I really, really appreciate that. One comment I'd just like to offer to the devotees, kind of an observation, is how Maharaj is making everyone think and reflect on things. And that's such an important thing. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the 12th chapter of the Gita, speaks about 3 stages of bhakti: abhyasa, manana, and smarana. And abhyasa just means kind of blind practice. And we should come to the platform of manana where we start thinking about things. And Maharaj, you're very, very expert in getting everyone to think in such a stimulating way and such an important message. I just wanted to offer my thanks.
Well, I appreciate your appreciation, but of course, thinking can also get in the way of devotion. I like a night. There's one of Mahatma Prabhu's affirmations for chanting japa is, "I get out of my mind and in my heart." Or no, he says, "I am out of my mind and in my heart." So when we're chanting, when we're engaging in the actual prayer, calling to Krishna, he's saying that's a time when you can put your mind aside, because we want to go into the heart. But of course, the mind is a facility. The intelligence is a facility that Krishna gives us, and we want to learn how to use them in favorable devotional service, anukulyasya sankalpa. And I would say this is an art. And what I find concerning is often devotees in the tendency to think in sort of black and white terms. They completely put aside their own abilities to think, to be discriminating. Viveka, which is a practice which is important for cultivation of bhakti, which is a matter of the heart. So thinking in service of devotion, that's what we want. Reflecting in service of devotion.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Krishna Maharaj, some people are, some students are asking that you seem to be an eternal associate of Srila Prabhupada from very beginning, before your life only, because the way you searched for Bhakti Yoga and like you joined the morning program the first day, so it seems so. One of our students is asking that how did you decide to join Srila Prabhupada's movement so quickly as a full-time devotee? How did you decide that?
Well, it wasn't a quick It wasn't really a quick decision because, as I said, I first met the devotees in the summer of 1969, but it was not until the summer of 1972 when I joined the devotees, and then we met Prabhupada very soon after that. And I saw devotees and heard them singing, I mean, literally every day for over 2 years in Berkeley before I started really taking it seriously. When I first encountered the devotees, I thought, wow, this is really amazing what they're doing. I don't really know what they're doing. Whatever it is, it's just amazing. I didn't have any categories to put it in. And at the same time, I thought, well, whatever it is they're doing, I'm a student. So it's not for me. I have, my studies, I have my classes. So I'm not going to get into it, whatever it is they're doing. I took their magazine a couple of times. I read a few pages of it. I thought, well, pretty far out. They're, descriptions of creation through Mahavishnu and Kshirdakshai Vishnu and Garbhodakshai Vishnu and what is all of this about? And Lord Brahma with 4 heads. And I thought, okay, that's fine. But, meanwhile, there's reality. So it took about 3 years, during which I would say the Mahamantra was working on me. And the impression I got from the devotees. And what was that impression? The impression was, these people are happy. And their happiness cannot be artificial. Keep in mind, in Berkeley at that time, it was kind of, don't get me started, all kinds of people were taking all kinds of intoxicants. And one might easily assume, well, whatever their happiness is, let's find out what drugs they're taking. But no, we could see that they weren't taking drugs. They weren't taking anything. They were simply taking the holy name. So that was working on me, I would say, over these years. And then from the negative side, so many negative experiences of just material life, the frustrations of material life. I mentioned the Vietnam War. This was a major concern of us, means my generation at that time. Are we going to be drafted and sent off to the other side of the planet only to get shot, only to get killed? And for what purpose? What is the ideology that, and what are we as a country doing to those people? It all just didn't make sense. And there was a lot of unrest, most especially manifest at my university. Berkeley was the hotbed of political protest in America at the time. It was kind of standard. It became something of a joke that every spring semester or every spring term, students would come out to protest something, and then the police and the National Guard would come and push the students back using tear gas. And I have to say, if you've never experienced tear gas, it's not pleasant. I've only experienced it from a distance, but it was enough for me to not want to get any closer. So a lot of unsettled conditions at that time. Personal disappointments and so on were there, and yeah, on and on. So I ended up dropping out of university, going to Europe, traveling, and eventually looking for devotees in Europe and finding them. Krishna sent me to the devotees practically as soon as I made that decision. I want to find those Hare Krishnas. And then sort of before I could make any further speculations about how to lead my life, Prabhupada, Krishna sent me to Prabhupada, I would put it that way. And then that was it.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I had one more question, but I'll take it later. Let's take Ramanand Prabhu now. Ramanand Krishna Prabhu is also a brahmachari who is helping in the youth preaching here in Bhubaneswar. He recently received the saffron also. Hare Krishna.
Oh, congratulations, Ramananda Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for enlightening us. So, Maharaj, as you told in your lecture that whatever Prabhupada has done, that is really inconceivable. And I was thinking during your lecture, the devotees, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada who joined ISKCON in the very beginning actually. So they have so much faith on Srila Prabhupada, and they have done a lot of work. They have done so much hard work for Srila Prabhupada. They have done so much hard work day and night to spread the Krishna conscious movement. So and at that time they were very young actually, as I am at now. So they were very young. So my question is that, Maharaj, how to get the same spirit as Srila Prabhupada, the early disciple had, same spirit, and preach the message of Krishna consciousness to the world, especially in Bhubaneswar, as Srila Prabhupada disciples had. Hare Krishna.
Well, one thing I think all of us have found helpful is reading about Srila Prabhupada as well as reading his books, to read about him. Someone mentioned recently that there are already something over between 50 and 60 books published about Srila Prabhupada. And just yesterday, someone said, actually, there's some 170 books that have to do directly or indirectly with Srila Prabhupada. So there's a lot. And I recommend His Holiness Satsvarup Das Goswami's Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, the unabridged edition, which I don't know if there's an Indian edition of that. There's, I guess, Los Angeles edition, which is 2 thick volumes. Originally, it was 6 volumes. But if you can get that, I recommend it. There's the 1-volume abridged edition. Of course, that's nice, but it's very abridged. And I think also you can learn a lot from his personal servants, Harishori Prabhu, and his name is slipping my mind just now. So many of his personal servants have written about Srila Prabhupada from being with him in direct proximity. This gives you a sense of the spirit. One book I recommend, which is especially fun to read, is Shyamasundar Prabhu's book. What is it? Chasing Rhinos. Yes, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. Shyamasundar Prabhu has a particular theme throughout, and that is the adventuresomeness of Krishna consciousness. He always speaks about how whenever he was with Prabhupada, he felt like he was on a big adventure, and they were always finding new ways to, new adventurous ways to spread Krishna consciousness. And it was Shyamasundar Prabhu especially who, in that spirit of adventure, ventured to meet this famous music group in London, the Beatles. He just decided, wouldn't it be great if they would give their attention to Krishna? So he just decided that's what he's going to do, and that's what he did. So that spirit of adventure, also when I've talked with Shyamasundar Prabhu, that's always what he brings up. He says, oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. It was an adventure. Again and again, he brings up that point. So to imbibe that spirit, if you can read, he has, I know 2 volumes are published, and I know he's written a 3rd volume. I don't know if it's published yet. But it's exciting reading, I can say. So you can get much of that spirit from these books. There are also, I know nowadays nobody likes to read, right? We only watch videos. So that's okay. If you only want to watch videos, then watch on YouTube. There are the interviews that Siddhanta Prabhu, my godbrother, has been conducting over the years with disciples of Srila Prabhupada. It's just called, what is it called? Memories, Prabhupada Memories, I think. And he has a channel, a YouTube channel, and there are literally hundreds of such interviews. So there you are, listening to and seeing all of these devotees who had some exchange, some very extensive interaction with Prabhupada, some very brief, minimal, but all of them having that, expressing the depth of their experience. And from that, you will certainly get a sense of the spirit to imbibe.
Okay. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I just know that how you met Srila Prabhupada and what was the interaction with him?
How I met Srila Prabhupada and what was the impression? Did I hear that?
What was the interaction? Means,
oh, what was the interaction?
Yeah, what was the interaction? Yes.
Okay. So as I said, I met Prabhupada in Paris in 1972. It was the end of June, beginning of July. And Prabhupada was, by this time, by 1972, he was doing world traveling. So I don't know the itinerary from Paris that year, whether he went to London, but anyway, we all came. We were about 60 devotees in Germany at the time. We met Prabhupada. We saw him at the airport. Prabhupada brushed, as we did dandavats in the airport to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada walked by, he brushed the tip of my right thumb with his foot, took as a blessing. And then we saw him over the next 3, maybe it was 4 days, as he was giving lectures in a place the devotees had rented. It was ironically, it was a school of architecture. I had come from studying architecture, and now here I was in the L'École d'Architecture. And I was one of several brahmacharis, and so I was rank and file. It was not that I was, going up and immediately having some personal interaction with Prabhupada. I was just one of the rank and file, listening, watching, and appreciating, everything about Prabhupada. In 1973, Prabhupada came to London. We met him there. He took part in the Ratha Yatra. He danced in the Ratha Yatra with tears in his eyes. And, this was all deeply impressive. I met him in 1974 in Germany. And at that time, I, let's say, mustered the faith, mustered the courage to ask Prabhupada a question at the end of his lecture. He gave a lecture in the evening on Bhagavad Gita, and it was, as ever, a powerful lecture. And I asked him a question which he was somehow inspired to give a quite extensive answer to. And it was his answer had a humorous and ironic conclusion. He was explaining Anyabhilashita Shunyam in his answer to me, which was, he wanted to say no desires, desire only for Krishna. And he went on that subject and then said that you can do anything for Krishna. You can clean the temple floor for Krishna. You can cook for Krishna. He gave maybe 1 or 2 other examples. And the last example he gave was, you can drive a car for Krishna. Now, the humor was that was my service. I was the temple driver. My big qualification was I had a driver's license. And so it wasn't the sort of thing anybody would feel the need to report to Prabhupada. There's this brahmachari and he's the temple driver. There were so many devotees with so many services, but somehow he said, you can drive a car for Krishna. And I thought, how does he know that I'm the driver? And all the devotees were laughing. Anyway, so like that. That was the one question that I asked Prabhupada. But one question, can make a difference also. One question, one answer from the Acharya.
I have one question. That you told is that time actually, that time many youths were joining that time. So even if you are from college background. So my question is, it is in Western culture that is very open for men and women. So when you joined, so how was initial journey? So it was very smooth after you connected with Prabhupada, or it was a struggle also. So what kind of journey that was in itself?
I don't know, there's a few key words in your question which I'm sorry, I'm not getting. So I wonder if someone else could, with a clearer microphone, could tell the question, because I'm not getting it.
I also couldn't hear it, Maharaj.
Maharaj, Western culture is very, and
Oh,
that
you're,
time many you joined to Prabhupada movement. So after joining, how was the journey? It was struggling because culture is very different. So and accepting this Vaishnav culture is very different. So it was a kind of struggle, or it was very slow.
how was the reception of Krishna consciousness in Germany? Is that basically your question?
Yes.
Okay. Well, for some time, the devotees in Germany were leading the world in book distribution. There was a certain spirit generated where we were just really leading the world. And I don't remember numbers at all at the time, but it was going very energetically. But in 1975, something happened, which I don't know if I want to get into. It's a longer story, but the whole German Yatra got into major conflict with the law. And the reason was that we were doing something which we should not have been doing. So Krishna was correcting us. We were collecting donations on false pretenses. We were saying that we are collecting for starving people in Bangladesh. And the fact was we were not sending any money to Bangladesh. We were collecting in the hope of making a lot of money in order to purchase a large property to have a temple in Germany. That was the idea. And the long and short of it was the government they confiscated all of that money, and the German press, we say in English slang, they gave us hell for months and months and months and months. They really gave us a hard time. But the sort of wonder and amazing thing is that after some time, it all kind of blew over. Book distribution resumed, life went on, and devotees are still there. We have we have a wonderful temple in southeast Germany, Singachalam. We have a very powerful Sri Sri Prahlad Nrsimha deity. And we have another temple in southwest Germany, Goloka Dham with Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan. The impact on the German society at large, I would say, is not very visible. That's true for Europe in general. And it's something which we think a lot about. Madhavananda Prabhu's pointing out we encourage thinking. So we're thinking and discussing a lot about impact, the longer term impact of Krishna consciousness in the West. How is it going? What is the trajectory? It's certainly not what it could be. And this brings me back to my point where one component I think that will be valuable is when we get well-educated, intelligent young people from India, well-versed in Krishna consciousness, who will be able to represent Krishna consciousness in the West. This can have a positive effect. But that's a bigger topic. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Maharaj, I had a question but Maharaj, how to overcome the situation when your mind thinks to be a practical, as you mentioned during your technical studies, you used to face that you used to think that this is not one for which you are made of. Means I always think that that this thing that Krishna chanting and this thing be practical. My mind, I used to do this, my mind make me think that let's be practical and do studies and focus on the career. But how to overcome the situation? Because this is the time which is crucial, very crucial.
Yes. Well, let me put it this way. When I said I dropped out of university and I became a brahmachari, and for the next 23 years, I was traveling around Europe and beyond. And then with encouragement of some of my senior godbrothers, I went back to university. Now, by that time, going back to university, by this time I was much older, I was quite settled in my spiritual practices, such that there was no question in my mind that I need to do them as much as I need to eat and sleep and get some exercise. I need to also practice my essential sadhana, chanting the Mahamantra especially, and so on. So what we want to understand is that we need spiritual nourishment. Again, just like eating. And our culture, which has trained us in such a way to think that we don't need it, this is the problem. So what's required is a kind of inversion of the mind, of the thinking, to understand my most essential practice or activity is serving Krishna. Why? Because I am servant of Krishna. That's what I really am. And I'm going to be a servant of Krishna at all times and all places, whether I know it or not. But since I know it, since I'm aware, at least somewhat aware, let me become more aware. And by doing that, and by allowing Krishna to make the necessary adjustments in your life so that you'll have this strong foundation, then you'll find you have all the time you need for your study, for your studies and other sorts of obligations. So it's a matter of prioritizing and putting Krishna at the top of the list. Now, one thing I recommend to students, I don't know how it is with you all, but in the West, the tendency is students are night owls. They tend to stay up late at night and even later at night and even into the early morning doing their studying because they've been wasting time much of the day. And then what happens? They go to sleep and they wake up at 11 o'clock the next morning. And then they spend the next 2 hours recovering and so on. So I'm sure you all understand this already, but I'll say it anyway. We need to be regulated in such a way that we're going early to bed, getting up early in the morning, and starting our sadhana early. That's what kept me balanced when I went back to university so many years later. I just decided, okay, now I'm going to have to kind of do double duty. How am I going to manage? I don't know, but I'm going to go to bed early and I'm going to get up early and then chant Hare Krishna and then do the best I can. And you'll find, I think, if you do that, if you chant nicely in the morning, then these thoughts of why am I doing this and so on, they will gradually fade away. You can, as the thoughts come, you can say, my dear thoughts of why are you doing this? These are very good thoughts, but kindly wait until I'm done. Then we can discuss. So that's my practical advice.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, Amit is a very sincere boy in our base, and he accepted Tulsi neck beads on this Rath Yatra day.
Ah, very nice.
And we have another question from Susant. I think we can take it, Maharaj. I don't think. Just last question.
Yes, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
I'm a grist. I go to the workplace. I got a lot of materialistic people to manage me there. I come back to my home. I even think lots of things as soon as I get up in the morning. I will do 20 rounds, 80 rounds, 16 rounds. I'm failed to do. And I'm here failed. And somehow I manage around 12 or 30 rounds. As soon as I go to the workplace, I need to manage the materialistic people. And with the tilak. So far
very
I'm
good.
into Hare Krishna. So lots of people ask me about it. And as you know, India is a secular country where multiple religion people are surviving in India. So you must find certain competition religion people that while coming to work and in such circumstances I get confused to manage. I want to take some suggestion from you, Maharaj.
Okay. Well, first, let me say, I think it's wonderful that you simply go to work wearing tilak, presenting yourself openly that way. That's very nice. Here, I would say the model is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. As you may know, he was himself a high court judge, or what's the word? He was, He was, in fact, he was there in Puri. He was in administering the Puri district at that time. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had one particular phrase which I've found a key for my own spiritual life, and that is Sadagrahi Vaishnava. Sada means essence, and grahi means a person who grasps, who appreciates. So think of yourself not as a member of some sect don't think of Vaishnavism as something sectarian, but rather just the opposite. That Vaishnavism is about a culture of finding the essence of spiritual life and appreciating in everyone, whatever their religious tradition may be, appreciating and encouraging their spiritual journey. So if you think in that way, then I think you'll see the people around you, the people at your work, they may gradually open up to your culture, your ways, and they may be open to benefit from what you have to say. What is spiritual life? Why is this important for you? You're not pushing anything on anyone. And especially as a Saragrahi Vaishnava, you want to listen to others and appreciate what is their point of view. However much it may differ from your own point of view, you can appreciate that it exists, and Krishna is giving those persons also facility for whatever their path is. Krishna says, I reciprocate with everyone as they approach me. So everyone has their relation with Krishna, and we can appreciate that. So it's not a competition. It's not in the opposite. Put it this way: the opposite of Saragrahi Vaishnava is in-your-face Vaishnava. You know this expression, in your face?
Oh, Maharaj.
So we're not in your face Vaishnavas. We are Saragrahi Vaishnavas. And this will, when people appreciate that, they can open to us, and then there can be very nice communication. There can be a culture of mutual appreciation.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I don't know why, but just to be with you and hear from you is so soothing. It is so, like, we are feeling like we are actually getting so much taste and so much shelter in your words. Thank you, Maharaj, for your kind
Hare
words.
Krishna.
You are a real Sarakrai Vaishnava. We are,
Hare Krishna.
and I am in my face Vaishnava.
I must say, I'm just so inspired seeing that you have this Sangha. I have visited Bhubaneswar temple a few times, a handful maybe, 5, 6 times. And just sort of passing through and thinking, well, okay, it's nice. But I've just recently heard from Madhavananda Prabhu how there's a whole new culture that's coming up now in the Bhubaneswar temple, and this is very, very exciting. And as I said, I think this is exactly what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Actually, Prabhupada was saying, he was writing, as you know, Back to Godhead before he went to America, starting from 1944. And in one of his articles from that time, he said that temples should be places of education. First and foremost, they should be places of education. So I think that's what's happening now. That's what you are doing. And all I can say is, let it thrive, let it increase.
We just wish that we would your words come true, and it happens. Whereas we are a small team of 7 devotees here, 6, 7 devotees, and by your blessings, His Grace Madhavananda's blessings, we all can surely try to please the Prabhupada. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And thank you again, Madhavananda Prabhu, for having me.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. We're just waiting for you to come back and visit us, spend some time with us again here in Puri.
Yes, I'm missing. I've been listening to your talks on Krishna's going to Kurukshetra. And yeah, every day at lunch, we're listening to your talks. And we've gotten as far as your meeting of Uddhava with Nanda Maharaj. You're going at quite a pace, I must say.
It keeps me out of trouble, Maharaj. So that's the honest truth.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So I'll say thank you again, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Krishna
So,
Kshetra Maharaj ki jai.
I will take my leave now, and all the best to you all.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.